an inspiring individual who was here with you yesterday, but he's back to answer your questions and spend some more time with you this afternoon. Please welcome the inspiring George Takei.
Thank you, the nattily dressed musicians that we have here at this convention. How are you enjoying this wonderful weekend? Very good. And this is an incredible phenomenon. Just think, last year was the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And this year is the 51st anniversary. It's been an amazing journey. And most of you have not been with us from the beginning. You were born later, you were born after we were canceled. So that's how phenomenal this is. And in the last 51 years, so many undreamed of things have happened. Certainly this 51-year longevity of Star Trek. But over those 51 years, we've gone to the highs as well as the lows. And we started pretty low in the ratings. When Star Trek was a TV series, we were very low rated and almost canceled after each season. But we lasted at least 3 seasons, and then it happened. We were canceled. But then the phenomenon happened after we were canceled. When we went into syndication, they put us on 5 nights a week, and that's when we found the audience and the ratings soared. And so they talked about reviving Star Trek as a TV series again. But then, 10 years after we were canceled in 1969, in 1979 we came back as a major feature film, directed by a legendary director, Robert Wise. A totally unimagined phenomenon. But I know that that was because there was amazing substance in what Gene Roddenberry created. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Diversity was his vision. And also to be foresighted and looking forward to the future in a positive way. Boldly go where no one has gone before, which later on became boldly go where no one has gone before, to be much more inclusive, keeping that diversity thing by bringing in a whole half of the population, the women. So boldly go where no one has gone before. And then that became a series of motion pictures. First, our series, and then the next generation took over with a few motion pictures, and then it was rebooted again with a third cast headed by Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, and they're both wonderful actors. I always enjoy seeing them in Star Trek or anything else. I saw Chris Pine in a theater piece at the Bartaker Forum in Los Angeles, playing an Irishman, and he was brilliant. And of course, Zach Quinto has been doing tremendous work in theater. I saw him on Broadway in Tennessee Williams' masterpiece, The Glass Menagerie, and it was the best Tom that I ever saw. He was amazing. So Star Trek has gone through many, many transmogrifications. Certainly as a TV series, we've had 4 spin-offs. We had Star Trek, The Next Generation, and the captain of that starship was a distinguished British actor, Patrick Stewart, and he was the second bald-headed captain of the Starship Enterprise. Well, it's true, right? And then the next series, Deep Space Nine, we had an African American captain of the starship. And so we had diversity in our leadership as well. And certainly in Voyager, we had the first woman captain of the Voyager. And that was certainly something to celebrate. And at that time, it was still a struggle to get a woman. In this day and age, it still is a struggle. But on television and with Star Trek, we achieved that. Leadership by women. We couldn't get that for the presidency of the United States, but we got it for Star Trek, captain of a starship. And then we got the next series, where for the first time, we had a white male with a full head of hair as the captain of a starship. Scott Bakula. And so many undreamed of things have happened over the last 50 years. And of course, you know all of the other spin-offs, the lunch pails, the books, the various fan films that are being created. But the most unexpected gift that we got was you guys, the fans, not only all over the United States, but now all over the globe. And this phenomenon of Star Trek conventions have been held all over on almost every continent in this country. I mean, on this planet. I gotta think planetary now. And so I've been to conventions in Europe, in all the great cities of Europe. In Latin America, I did conventions in Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. I've done conventions in Asia, in Japan. So it's one of the most wonderful gifts that we've got. We're all of you, fans who love the show, who have been dedicated, some from the very beginning. And I think I can tell who were the original fans back in 1966. Yes? So there you are. Thank you very much. We have lived long and prospered because of you guys. Despite the lack of hair or the white color of it, here you are, still supporting us. And we are living long and prospering, aren't we? Thank you very much to the original fans. But also thank you to all of the other generations of fans that have given us this incredible phenomenon. But when we think of all the wonderful gifts that we've got, we also have to think about some of the losses that we've experienced over the last 50 years. And one of the first great loss was Gene Roddenberry, the man who created Star Trek, the man whose philosophy embodied Star Trek, and the man who was such an original, creative, powerful talent. Gene Roddenberry passed in 1991. It was a great loss, but he left us with this wonderful legacy. And then after that, in 1999, at the close of the 20th century, DeForest Kelley, the beloved Dr. McCoy, was lost. And I loved DeForest very much. He was actually unusual for an actor. He was very shy. And to be very honest, he didn't want to do conventions. He couldn't quite deal with the enormous success of Star Trek and the enormous love that you all gave to him. He was more comfortable on a one-to-one basis and in a more sedate environment. But he was a real Southern gentleman. He was from Macon, Georgia. He was a genuine Southerner. He spoke very slowly, as Southerners speak, but he was also very genuine and very sweet, and as a matter of fact, very courtly, as Southern gentlemen are. I remember, my grandfather was in farming in the Sacramento Delta of California, and he introduced a lot of crops that weren't grown there. And my uncles, who took over the farm there in the Sacramento area, also, like him, introduced new crops. And one of the things one of my uncles introduced was kiwi fruits. A very unusual fruit, but a very delicious fruit. And every time they had a good harvest, they would send us boxfuls of kiwi fruits. And so I'd take bags full to the studio, and DeForest really loved kiwi fruits. So I made it a habit every time we got a shipment from Sacramento to bring DeForest the kiwi fruits. He loved them, and very graciously he reciprocated with the kind gifts that he brought. Dee was a real loss. Shortly after that, we lost Jimmy Doohan. And Jimmy was a real dear friend of mine. As a matter of fact, he was my favorite drinking buddy. And I learned a lot from Jimmy. At one of our sessions, he told me that he's playing a Scotsman, and he was very good with various accents, except Asian accents. But he prided himself in being able to do many, many different accents. He could do any accent in the world. And I asked him to do an Asian accent, you know, Chinese or Japanese. And he would take it on. It was very, very chop suey. A little touch of Chinese accent, a little touch of Japanese accent, and a little touch of Orientalia. But I complimented him anyway because he liked to be complimented. But his mastery of the various accents of the British Isles was, I thought, wonderful. He did a wonderful Cockney. He did a wonderful Brahmi, the accent of Birmingham. And he said his Scottish accent that he used for Scotty was Glaswegian. But I remember doing a convention in Glasgow and having one of the fans ask me, really, what accent is Jimmy Doohan doing? And I said, Glaswegian. And he said, and this person said, it doesn't sound Glaswegian to me. But to me it sounded very Scottish. So it was a generic Scottish. And I was having this drink with him, and he told me he's become famous as a Scotsman, but actually he is an Irish Canadian. But, he told me, oh, Canadians here or Irishmen here? Irishman? Canadian? Ah, a lot of you. Jimmy said, but, I may be Irish Canadian, but I've drunk enough of the libation of Scotland to qualify playing a Scotsman. And I was witness to it. He did qualify. After we lost Jimmy, we lost Majel, who played Nurse Chapel, but she was also Mrs. Roddenberry. And she was also a very, very good friend and a co-worker, and her loss is very much felt to this day. And she was the legator of Gene's legacy, which she kept going strong. She was an indefatigable convention goer to keep the flame of Gene Roddenberry's creation going. And we lost someone that was a lovely addition to the cast, Grace Lee Whitney. She played Yeoman Ran in the TV series and in a couple of the feature films. And you know, this other remarkable phenomenon of Star Trek, fans have started creating their own Star Treks. And I did one up in upstate New York, and Gracie joined me on that. And she really loved being back in that yeoman's uniform, that red uniform, and playing Yeoman Rand. And she had a very tough life post Star Trek, but she's a strong-spined lady, and she bounced right back. But she too passed in the 21st century. And most recently, 2 years ago, we lost Leonard Nimoy. Most people say he was a conscience of Star Trek. He was a sensitive man, he was an intelligent man, he was also a very socially conscious man. And one of the things I really enjoyed with Leonard was setting a set side and talking politics. We both were kindred spirits in that area. We loved the political arena, and Leonard supported some people, and he would have introductory meetings in his living room, and he found a candidate for governor of California, and he invited me to go there and meet George Moscone, and he did eventually become mayor of San Francisco, but he very sadly was assassinated before he was able to run for governor. But Leonard was a strong supporter of his. He also created that extraordinary character of Spock. The character was so extraordinary that he felt that he was going to be stereotyped in that role only. And he wrote a book titled, I Am Not Spock. He certainly was not Spock. He was a talented actor, and as we discovered, also an enormously gifted director. But he wanted to say that I am a person who has all these other talents with that book. But we loved him, the fans all loved him as Spock, and he continued to play Spock because of the studio's pleading for him to keep that character going. But he was also a good negotiator. He said, all right, you want me to recreate Spock on a condition. He said, if I get to be the director in the next film, I will play Spock again. And this was the negotiation for Star Trek II, The Wrath of God. The studio desperately needed him to recreate Spock. And so that deal was made. And he directed Star Trek III, which was very successful. So successful that he was able to say, I want to direct the next one too. And the studio agreed because he proved himself with Star Trek III. And as a matter of fact, here again, Leonard brought his own personal philosophy of both the political arena as well as the social arena, and his conscience for our planet. He wanted to bring the environmental question into play. And so he brought in the idea of our interconnection and interdependence, different species, in order to keep a balanced society going, a healthy society going on this planet. And so it dealt with the connection that we have with whales. And Star Trek IV, the Voyage Home, turned out to be the biggest box office success of all of the Star Trek films. It was enormously profitable for America. And I see that you all agree. Star Trek IV, Voyage Home, directed by Leonard Nimoy. And so Bill decided he wanted to have the same power too, and he insisted on having the right to direct Star Trek V, and so he was given that right. And then we got Star Trek VI, my favorite Star Trek movie. Yesterday I talked about the fun I had there and all of the exciting things that happened with Star Trek VI. The undiscovered country that I still maintain should have been subtitled Star Trek VI Captain Sulu to the rescue, because that's what the movie is all about. And so Leonard Nimoy displayed his many, many talents, and also his many, many work that he did outside of Star Trek, in the political arena, in the social justice arena, and certainly in his other creative arena, photography particularly, and certainly directing. And so his loss in 2015 was one that we really mourned. And there is an absence in our lives because of that. But he's left us a wonderful legacy. So all these people that have passed have left us this gift of what they did with their lives. So the message and the philosophy that I've gathered from all my colleagues on Star Trek is that you've got to live your life fully and contribute the best you can to making this a better society, so that we can leave a better society than what we have today for generations yet to come. And all my colleagues who I've been blessed to work with, and that's been one of the great gifts that I've had, is that idea of doing what you can and do it, and the other aspect of it is really enjoying your life that we have, each moment, appreciating the gifts that we have, appreciating the gifts that we've been given by the people who have passed on. And I certainly do subscribe to that idea. I consider all of you and all the gifts that you've given us one of the wonderful things about my life personally here. And I've been enjoying it. All the conventions that I've been blessed to go to. I love travel. I'm a city kid, and I love to study cities. And Star Trek fandom has given me the opportunity to travel all over. And certainly places that I've always loved and enjoyed going back to. London, Paris, Berlin, Buenos Aires, Tokyo, all these places. But I've been able to go to places that I never thought of going to, which had been discoveries, like Helena, Montana, where the architecture there, to me, structurally, signifies the kind of people that moved west into the unpopulated area of this country. Helena, Montana's architectures, these granite boulders that's piled up, the turn of the century architecture. And it makes that statement about the American West and the kind of people that made the American West what it is. Also places like Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Or, oh, somebody from Louisiana here? I heard somebody clapping. We recognize, or I heard you. Or Wichita, Kansas. Places like, oh, there are people from Wichita here. Or one voice from Wichita. But all these wonderful gifts that I've been given, I really enjoy. In fact, I've also appreciated going to some of the places that I would have avoided going to, like Detroit, Michigan, Basket Case City. Oh, somebody from Michigan, Detroit. I've learned that, I love cities because they're fascinating, they're vibrant, they're historic. I can read the history in the buildings. But in Detroit, I can also study what makes cities not work. Detroit is a one-industry town, the automobile industry. And when that goes down, unemployment skyrockets. But the other part of what makes a city great is having good leadership. And Detroit's had a series of corrupt elected officials. And that's what's contributed to the basket case situation that they have. And so to make cities lovable exciting and livable, you need good political leadership. And as a nation today, I think we are in very worrisome times with the kind of leadership we have in Washington as a nation. And as citizens who care and who love this country, I think it's important that we actively work and participate in bringing out a better situation to bear. Donald Trump must go. I heard some boos. And you know, I believe in a two-party system. I'm a Democrat, but I support some good friends who are Republicans. But the Republican Party has a contribution to make. And people who have principles and conscience and a love for American democracy has to take a stand against someone who is reckless, who's dangerous, who knows very little about American history and is repeating the failures of American history all over again. So I'm speaking to you, good Republicans, and I respect the Republican philosophy, and I have good conversations with some of my Republican friends, and I want to see you Republicans take a stand for America, for the principles and ideals, and they are shining ideals of our American democracy. And Republicans need to take a leadership on this, as well as all of us, but particularly because Donald Trump claims to be a Republican. You Republicans out there have to take on that responsibility. We have a wonderful country here, and our love for the country has to come to the fore as the most important thing when we have the kind of leadership we have, this dangerous leadership in the White House. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that most of you agree with me. I see, we just have one mic here? One mic. All right, so let's begin the dialogue. You are first in line.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Okay, every year it's wonderful to be here with you. But last year in particular, someone asked about every time Shatner has a new book, a new TV commercial, a new this, a new that, he brings up to the media that you and him are in this big, furious fight, and you said, let me get this straight. It's not real. It's just Bill promoting his next book, his next commercial, his next whatever. We've always got along fine. It's just him storytelling. And you and I met later that day, and I said, you know what? You and I are going to have that photo op tomorrow with my family, the Kirk family. And the Kirk family, I'm going to give you a big hug and a big kiss. Then that way you can take that to Bill every time he starts his again and say, Bill, the Kirk family loves me.
Thank you, Kirk family. I love you right back.
I got this for you and Brad.
Bless your heart. Thank you. She's very thoughtful. She thought of my husband, too. Oh, thank you. This is fantastic. Thank you. I love you back. Thank you so much, Kirk family. Yeah, the Kirk family is in uniform. And she's kissing me, and my eyes are all googled, and Brad is just beaming. And is this your son or brother? Yep, he's got his head right up to Brad's head. Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you very much.
How's it going, George? Yesterday,
Well, I'm going to sit down.
yesterday you mentioned a couple of art exhibits where there are some photo displays of the Japanese internment camps with details?
No. They weren't Japanese internment camps. They were Japanese American internment camps. Japanese internment camps are run by the government of Japan. I mean, if you just see the word. We were incarcerated in our own country here in America by our own government, the U.S. government. And we were guarded by the United States Army. But we were innocent American citizens. We had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. And so please get the term right. It's Japanese American internment camp.
Nonetheless, I've actually heard about another autobiographical work that you have in the works, which details, has details about the internment camps and your life. And it's in the form of a graphic novel, I thought. And I thought that was really interesting that you came up with that format to tell the story. I was wondering how, what the rationale was behind the graphic novel, and if it'll cover other details of your life, maybe even some Star Trek details too.
Well, I consider it my mission in life to raise the awareness of this dark chapter of American history, because so many Americans to this day know nothing or very little about the internment of Japanese Americans. As I said, innocent Americans that had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor other than just looking like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. And so I've been initially active speaking about the internment all over. When I was in high school, I talked to my classes. And as an adult, I've been speaking at universities, at corporate conferences, and at governmental agencies. Those talks have been reaching people here, but I felt that the story needs to be told so it communicates here as well, to the heart. And I found a very gifted composer lyricist, and together with him and very fine writers, we developed a musical aimed at Broadway. And we took that musical to Broadway, and we affected many, many people. Those of you that saw Allegiance either on Broadway or on film, raise your hand. Good number of you have seen it. Well, let me tell you that we are bringing Allegiance to Los Angeles in February, and I hope you all join us for that. Those of you who saw it who saw it, come see it again. Those of you who haven't seen it live, come to Los Angeles. If you live on the East Coast, you don't want to be in that February cold and slush and all that discomfort. Come to sunny Southern California, Los Angeles, starting February 28th for Allegiance. And so we developed that to raise the awareness and also touch people through the heart. And we founded a museum to tell that story as well. It's also in Los Angeles, the Japanese American National Museum. And as a matter of fact, they are currently, they have on an exhibit on my life there at the museum. And, but it's closing at the end of August. So those of you who come to see Allegiance in February, it'll be too late. So come to Los Angeles before this month is over, and come back again in February, March, and April to see Allegiance. And why? And I've written an autobiography, which ended in 1991, when with Gene Roddenberry's passing. And I've lived a lot more material, so I'm very slowly putting together another autobiography to cover the parts that I've lived since that autobiography, To the Stars. But why a graphic novel? Well, because there are people that read books, and there are people who read graphic novels. And there's an enormous market for anime, people who love anime or animation. And so I think I want to tell that story to every segment of the populace. The Broadway theater goers, the book readers, the people that go to speeches and talks. And so I'm working with this very talented graphic novel producer who also did one on John Lewis, the civil rights leader. And that I think he's planning on getting that out sometime next year. So yes, please do look forward to that. And yes, it will have new material that I've lived since the end of To the Stars.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, George.
Hi.
It's always a pleasure to see you and to listen to you. And I also follow you on Twitter. I love it.
Well, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say I'm a teacher at Los Angeles High School.
Los Angeles High School?
Yes.
That's the school I went to.
I know. We have the names of all the famous alumnus on the wall. I see you every day when I come in, and I have to tell all the students about you, who you are, and what you've done. And every year I give them a lecture.
Well, thank you very much for that. You're my publicist at Alley High.
Right. Also, I graduated from Los Angeles High, and I just want to say, hail Romans.
Go Romans. And you went to a class much after me. I went to the 50th reunion of my high school graduation. And I won't tell you how many years ago that was.
Hello, George. This is Gordon from Austin, Texas. And
Hello again.
I want to say that thank you for that interesting discussion about politics on a national level, but we also have interesting politics at the state level. One of the things going through the legislative session now is a bathroom bill. It didn't quite make it to the normal legislative session, and now they are in a special session, and it's one of the topics that they're bringing up. What is the best way for us to try and oppose that in an effective way, but in a peaceful and loving way?
And what is that bill?
It's a bathroom bill that you have to go to the bathrooms
yes.
with what's on
your birth certificates, yes. Well, you know, I think the people that are opposed to the LGBT community are trying to find every which way to express their prejudice in legal form, in legislative form. They tried to use religion, you know, religious freedom, because their religion doesn't sanction people being who they are as we are made by God. And so they use their religion to try to discriminate against other people. And now the battlefield is, of all places, the bathroom. Let's use this example. We all know who Caitlyn Jenner is, a great Olympic athlete, gold medal winner. She is a transgender person, and she made that transition, and she's a beautiful woman, gorgeous, glamorous woman, has great taste in dress. She's a very beautiful dresser as well. Can you see her going into the men's restroom and being able to do it safely? Not just comfortably, but safely. I mean, common sense tells you that that's not a sensible thing to do. And who cares? I mean, she's going to be going into a booth. What insecure man can't have a transgender person coming into the bathroom? So what they do is they turn that argument around and say, well, a pervert, a pedophile is going into the ladies' room to assault some little girl. When you ask them, and that issue first came up in North Carolina. I happened to be in North Carolina at the time that bill was enacted. when you ask the legislator, give me an example of where a pedophile dressed as a woman and went into the ladies' room. They'll say, oh, let me see, I'll get back to you. And they never get back to you because it hasn't happened. They don't have a case, but they just want to frighten people by with the idea of a man dressed as a woman who's a pedophile coming into the ladies' room. So it is a discriminatory bill put together by people who are insecure of their own sexuality. There is a man who's insecure about his manhood, or a woman who's insecure about her womanhood, to come up with a bill as ridiculous as that. It's laughable. And so I have a t-shirt out right now reading, "You can pee next to me." Rhymes, doesn't it? It is a preposterous bill that is rife with prejudice. And it's simply that, prejudice.
Thank you very much.
I see the musicians coming on. What does that mean? Are they gonna, it's like the Oscars, you know, when you're talking too long, thanking everybody, they start playing music. Is that what you're here to do? Or are you here to be background music for the next person with the comment? Oh, wonderful, all right. What kind of comment do you have so that they can have the appropriate music for you?
George, I want to tell you, I'm so appreciative of what you said about, of course, being proud of the Japanese men who helped in World War II. I understand that, because I understand how we feel as African Americans about our red tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, because we're ignored also. Because we, from Christmas addicts and the Revolutionary War till now, always fought for America as African Americans from way back then to now. So I understand that. Also, I want to tell you that you keep mentioning about the museum, okay, Japanese American Museum, with your exhibit there. But I understand that also you have a Star Trek part of that exhibit. Isn't that part of it?
Well, Star Trek is certainly a part of my life, a very important part of my life. And Gene Roddenberry gave me the costume that I wore when I played Captain Sulu. And there it was sitting in my closet. And I thought, you know, no one is able to enjoy this in my closet. I want to share it with everybody. So I donated it to the Japanese American National Museum, and it is currently a part of the George Takei exhibit. And you are absolutely right about the African American patriotism for this country. When you go to Boston, there is a statue commemorating the African American troops that fought in the Civil War. And so we have a long history. This country has a long history of discrimination against people who, despite that discrimination, believed in the shining core ideals of our democracy. And that's what we fought for, and we are making progress. I mean, certainly, African Americans have had the great pride of knowing that your community produced a President of the United States, Barack Obama, one of the great presidents that we've had. And when I was a teenager, I was active in the civil rights movement. I did a musical titled Flying Blackbird, a young student group fighting for equality for the African Americans. And we sang at many rallies in Los Angeles. One of the biggest rallies that we had was at the Sports Arena in LA, and the keynote speaker was Dr. Martin Luther King. And I had the unique privilege of meeting him backstage after that event. I shook hands with him and chatted with him briefly, and for about 3 days, this hand that shook Dr. Martin Luther King's hand didn't go washed. I've washed it considerably since then, but my love for him and his work is still very deeply here. is going to start playing. Can we have one background music for the... Oh, the last person has disappeared. Okay, we're waiting so patiently. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, the lulling music of these Natalie dressed musicians. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this weekend.